Hi, my name is Brenda Reese. I'm a relationship mentor and coach. And today I have my beautiful guest, Kim, on, and we are going to be talking about improving relationships with boundaries. And I know most of you have great boundaries and you probably don't need this topic, but Kim and I do. And so today we are going to be sharing, especially for those of us who have a lot, excuse me, who have these relationships, we have situations that we kind of are afraid to talk about out loud or with maybe more than just our own selves. Because there's some of these journeys that we are on can be challenging, right, Kim? And so this boundaries with others and personally is something we're going to talk about today.
Yeah, it's so funny when we were kind of chatting, prepping for, what we wanted to talk about today. This one really provoked a lot, invoked a lot for
Mhm.
me. I'll share a tiny little bit, but I spent the most of my adult life, in excess or pushing that 300-pound weight in my life. And in 2020, whatever, I started on this journey, and I've gotten my weight more manageable, down under the 200 mark. And
Yeah.
so and it's really interesting because a lot of people say, oh, and this is not about that, but like I said, just a minute to get us there. But
Yeah.
people are like, oh, what did you do? I want to do it. What pill did you take? What? And it's so funny because I jokingly would tell people, which wasn't really a joke, I sat in the corner and rocked a lot, right? Like, for me, this weight loss journey, it wasn't about calories in, calories out, although that 100% is a portion of this.
Yeah.
But what was really unexpected to me is that I had to really evaluate my relationships. I'm not perfect at it. And what I realized is you don't weigh 300 pounds because everything's okay. I weighed 300 pounds because literally the weight of the world on my shoulders and in my body. And also what I realized is that I have, because it still exists there, I still work through it, such a need to be needed and loved and
Mhm.
wanted and accepted, that I would literally sacrifice my own health, my own physical and mental health, to be able to get that from anybody. So I'm everybody's best friend. I love everybody, and what happened to me in that 50-year process is that I gave my entire life away. And I am having to really learn about what those boundaries are in relationships, because I've watched my world get really, really small in the relationships that I have, because when you start to set boundaries, that doesn't really resonate very well for other people. And I will say, and this is the other part I know that I want to talk about, is because I wasn't really good at setting those boundaries. Like, it wasn't this smooth, beautiful, enlightened transition where I was like, oh, I'm losing weight and taking care of my body, so now I'm going to set a boundary with you out of love because I love you. No, it was honestly a poop show. Like, because I didn't know what I was doing. So I'm clunking around, breaking up relationships in the worst of ways, trying to set boundaries. And when we talked about the other day what we were going to present today and talk
Mhm.
with everybody about, was so surprised at how much this question brought up for me again, in that, because I'm still in the process. I'm still trying to work on improving my relationships with boundaries, and I'm not perfect at it every day. And I'm sorry that was a lot of preface to get to this question, but I kind of feel like maybe it's important. Maybe somebody else is sitting there going, I have those feelings too, or I don't really know how to get out of the clunkiness of boundaries with relationships. So I was hoping that you could do, Brenda coaching. Maybe this is 103. We did 101 and 102. Maybe this is 103, because I feel like there's still a lot to unpeel there. And I was feeling pretty confident in the work that I'm doing, but this brought up a lot for me. So, what are your thoughts? I'm going to be quiet for a minute.
Thank you so much for your transparency because you are not alone. And there are so many of us that feel that clunkiness in setting boundaries just in general. And also, when it comes to something like this, a big either a self transition or a life transition, right? So something inside of ourselves or something outside of ourselves. Because the one thing that we got to do first, the number one relationship is with self
Yeah.
before we can even go there, right? Go outside of ourselves, setting those boundaries. What, if I can ask, what were the feelings that were coming up for you as you were processing this question? Like when you felt that clunkiness, when you felt that awkward, what was it?
So truthfully, I sat in judgment of myself. I
Mhm.
was looking at, in the beginning of this journey for me, when the boundaries were being set, I started setting boundaries out of absolute desperation because I was terrified, right?
Yeah.
But I didn't set them very gracefully. And so they sounded a lot like, I can't do that because I'm taking care of me, or you're not important to me, or I can't do that for you anymore because I've given you my soul and now you've sucked me dry, right? I mean, I'm being a little flamboyant in those words, but I'm kind of judging myself for that because I didn't have the grace to be able to say, either to say it kindly or to say it with grace or to give it to myself respectfully. It's taken me a long time to be able to say, hey, that sounds great. However, I'm not going to be able to do that because of this, and do it kindly. And so I found myself back in the beginning going, oh, I was so not very kind, honestly, to the humans who it wasn't their fault. Like they didn't do that to me. I allowed it to happen to me and then put on the brakes really fast and kind of made it their problem.
Well, yeah, and this is what reminds me of we teach people how to treat us, right? So we have out of codependence the need to be loved, to prove ourselves like you talked about. What we do is we just open ourselves up, we flay ourselves open without any kind of edge or boundary, we'll call it, or any kind of awareness of self.
Yeah.
This is a biggie when it comes to boundaries for ourselves first and then others is self-awareness.
Yes.
That's key. And how do you get self-awareness? You get it by reflection.
Yeah.
Because we are all, whenever we start something new, regardless of where we're at all in life, it's scary
Mhm.
and it's new. And so we get a pendulum swing.
Mhm.
When I learned to set boundaries in relationships, well, with myself first, because I grew up like you. I mean, I spent most of my life codependent and most of my life trying to please others, bring in the harmony, try to make things okay. And
For
it wasn't
everybody.
for everybody. And it wasn't really for them. It was for me. So I get it where you're feeling like this clunkiness and we go from here of like giving ourselves away to over here is like, oh no, can't touch this, kind of thing. And
Right.
because that's kind of how we work. So first, give yourself grace. Because of course we're going to judge because we're judgmental beings. Of course we are. And like until we can learn to treat ourselves differently, we are going to say some mean things. Our job is to catch ourselves.
Right.
Our job is to learn to pause when agitated or doubtful, right? We learn to pause.
That sorry to interrupt you, but that's such good information. I always feel like, when somebody shoots you an email or shoots you a text or wants something from you or needs something or just is giving you their opinion about something, I always feel like I have to answer right away, give them an answer right away. And so it's very reactionary in doing that. And one thing that I'm really working on is to not do that, to give myself 10 minutes, 20 minutes, a couple hours, maybe a
Yes.
day before I respond, because I have to retrain my brain that it's not that I'm not at their beck and call or everybody's beck and call, but sometimes I have to go, oh, wait, you were actually in the middle of helping your child do something. So you don't grab your phone and respond to this thing that's happening. It's okay to set that boundary and be like, I'm going to complete what I'm doing here with my child, my friend, my work, my dog, myself. And then I can take the time to respond to that. But that it's like Pavlov's dog to me. Like the ding goes off, the text goes off, the email goes off, the request goes off, and I'm like, drop everything, handle. And I have to take a deep breath and go, no, stay put, and then go into that.
Absolutely. And this is, we've all been trained. We've all been conditioned. We've all been programmed. We have, because of the fact that in this world, what, I like to call it the microwave mentality. It's the instant, right?
Yeah.
We are trained. It is ding, 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 ding. And so turn off the notifications, for God's sakes. I mean, seriously, there are certain physical things that we can do to help our internal. Now, this is helping us with our own relationship with ourselves and with others, because if I don't do self-reflection so I can get self-awareness of what are those triggers, if I don't identify my needs and my wants, my values, right? There's no way I can really be in a healthy relationship. I am always going to cater to the other. And we don't want to other. We do want to be pure about ourselves, about our thoughts and our feelings. And that's something nobody's taught that, really. Nobody in this world. And it's unfortunate. So that we don't get reactionary, so we can learn to respond versus react, we have to pause. And the other thing is like seriously doing, a lot of people are doing this now, turn off the notifications, especially social media. Go to social media at a set time. I mean, there's a reason for this. We have to untrain ourselves because social media wants us to do that. They want us to be addicted, just like addicted to sugar, addicted to different things. And we are so, especially over these last few years, our nervous systems are on alert. So that makes it even harder to be able to control our emotional eating, our emotional scrolling, our emotional, isolating.
Yeah.
And so back to the pendulum swing, to be able to not do that, we just pause. We just take a breath, or we just learn to go, okay, I'm not in charge of my first thought, but I'm in charge of every thought after that. Okay. All right. So I want to push these people away because I'm trying to protect myself. Like on yours, on your new journey, it's like we learn to fight first, push away, and then go, oh, I didn't mean to do that. Okay. So how do I not do that? First, be aware that I am. So this is great that you knew that. Even if it's in reflection, that's good.
Yeah.
And then we have to understand, what is it that I want here? What is it that, who in my life is actually adding to my life, is a mutual relationship versus maybe not the influence that I want.
Right.
Okay. Right. Because we're with people, like when I was drinking, I hung out with people who drank.
Right.
I think, and in fact, I drink more. I'm not as bad as that person. So, I'm doing pretty good. Right. So when I got to the point of getting sober or stopping drinking, it was like, I had to change a lot. And I remember sitting in a meeting and people are going, you only have to change one thing. And that's everything.
I was like, wait, what's the one thing? I want to know. Because I didn't change one thing. I changed everything.
Everything. That's what they said. And I'm like, oh, damn. But I did. But how we learn to do it gracefully is we understand, one, what is it that I want? Who is it that can help me in this journey? Who's got my back? Who can support me? Who gives? And it's a mutual relationship. Who does that? And when we take an inventory of who those relationships are, it's amazing how we learn that what we thought was a good, healthy relationship is not. But that's what I would suggest first, because we have to prioritize this ourselves first. We have to take care of ourselves. We have to be aware of what we want and not want. What are our needs and wants? And who does that when we're codependent?
Right. Because we spend, again, what I'm realizing, and as I've been reflecting through this over the last little day or so is that what I'm realizing is the relationships that I have now are more valuable to me and kinder than all of the relationships I had before. And I'm finding, and maybe you can speak to this a little bit, I'm finding that that feeling like when you get a text from somebody or a phone call from somebody that when you go, ugh, like, do you know what I mean? But you're back in it because I don't witness that as much hardly ever in my life now, where so the quality of the relationships that I have in my life, they're the same people. I didn't change people necessarily. I did exit some, but the people are still here. I'm reacting to them differently. I'm nourishing the relationship differently. And so the relationship is different and it's stronger. Is that even a thing? Like, does that happen? Because that's how it feels like to me.
And why is it stronger though, Kim?
I
What
think,
in the dynamic, what changed?
interestingly, like I never had a conversation with any of these people
No.
saying, hey, by the way, I'm going to set some boundaries in our relationship because this isn't working. I just started to change my behavior and my thinking, and then my feeling about the relationships are so much different. I'm enjoying them. I value them. And so I'm getting that back from these people. They're valuing me. They're showing up for me, where before I was doing most of the showing up.
Well, exactly. And this is where, because you were trying to prove yourself, you were trying to be loved, you were doing this, and it makes it a very, like two batteries, right? When you've got the positive and the negative together, there's this tension. It adds a tension. When we step back a little bit, because what you were doing through the work that you've been doing through this time is you have been realizing who you are, coming to accept yourself. You're doing what we were talking about without even consciously making that effort because of all the work that you chose to do for you.
Right.
You were learning to be a little easier on yourself, you're a little kinder, and you see it already feels softer. It already feels like, wait, because in any relationship, when we change ourself, our energy, our dynamic of how we treat ourselves, it is reflected outside.
Yeah.
And people all of a sudden start acting a little differently. And we're like, oh, you didn't ask them. And then we learn to set those boundaries a little bit easier. Then you learn to go, no, I'm feeling like I'm not going to be able to do that. I've got some other things that I need to take care of. I don't have to explain why. I don't have to go, no, I'm not going to do that because I have to take care of myself because I'm more important. We don't do it that way. We just go, you know what? Let me get back to you on that. Right. If it's something that you're thinking about, but most of the time it is like, no, we tune in because if I don't step back and if I'm not self-aware, I don't know that my body's reacting. My body and some of those relationships of mine were just on fire. It was tense, like, ooh, not good. And I wasn't even able to feel it because I was so going to make it happen.
Yeah.
And so that's what it sounds like you were going through too. And so through the awareness, through the reflection, through identifying what you needed and wanted, being able to step back, pause, those are all really important. They sound simple, but simple is really good. Then you were able to show up in the relationship and receive from it what you could receive because you were giving from a different flow. It's that infinity symbol. You were giving differently, so being able to receive differently. Does that make sense?
It does. And it's funny when you said, I can't, because I think one of the scariest things that I am still practicing today is for me to be able to say, can you? And I'll say, actually, I'm not able to, and have it just be that.
Yes.
That terrifies me to
I
this
know.
day still, because I can write a paragraph of the why, and even kindly, I can't because we've got this and that, and I love you, and I don't want you to be mad at me, and I want to help you, and I want to do this with you, even if it's just going for, a soda or a coffee with a friend.
Right.
Like sometimes I'm just not available. I cannot, but I have to retrain my brain because I still want to give them the book about why I can't, why it's not about them, and please don't be mad at me. And do you know what I'm saying?
Well, it's only for your own approval. It's so that they won't be mad at me. They won't love me because if I don't tell them, if I don't justify my existence, then I'm gonna be rejected.
That's right.
Everybody has a form of this.
Yep.
And that's the first thing that was the hardest thing to learn when I went through and when I discovered the codependence, just like you're talking about. The hardest thing was just like no is a complete answer, and that I do not have to explain myself. And you will notice that people that are more confident within themselves, they don't explain themselves unless you want to and you know where it's coming from. I'm not going to explain myself because I'm trying to justify myself. But say for you, it's like, Brenda, hey, can you go for coffee? For you, because our relationship is different, it's like, no, I've got to, go do something with Doug, or I've got to go do this, or no, or actually I'm kind of tired today, so I'm not going to be able to.
Right. And those are the relationships that I want. I want the relationship that says, you know what, I can't say yes today, honestly, because I'm going to lay in bed with my cup of coffee and I can't cope today.
Yes. And we cultivate those relationships by knowing our needs and wants, becoming okay with that. And it will still, as we're learning, we're still going to be a little bit nervous. We're going to be a little bit nervous because we have that little fear in there of that rejection. But the thing is like the more it's a muscle. It's a muscle. The more you go to the gym, the more it gets easier. And then you learn, I can explain it to this. Or sometimes, like you could say it to me, is like, Brenda, I can't today. And I would go, great. You don't even have to explain.
Yep. Yeah.
Right?
I love that. Those are the relationships that I want to.
And the more we can cultivate that relationship, I think it's great. And so, but we have to realize ourselves first. We have to know, where is my energy leak? Where am I not having my boundaries? We get self-awareness first. It's like, what relationships do I want to cultivate, and which kind of, we always know they irritate us. So which one? Take an inventory of that. Let's write those down. And then let's go, okay, what is it that I want in this relationship? What is it what are my needs? Are my needs being met? Am I always the one that's contacting them all the time? Or do they reach out and say, hey, Kim, what's going on? Those are the ones you want.
It's kind of a fun game, and I'll be mindful because I know we're going a little over today, but it's kind of a little game that I played with myself. And I don't mean game in that I was doing anything horrible to anybody. But as I start, and I still kind of do this, as I become aware of a behavior that I have, I'll just start to treat another human differently. Like, let's say I'm having a negative situation that I'm not happy with. Rather than maybe going balls to the wall and be like, hey, look, what I try to do, what I'm playing with is, I wonder what would happen if I just softened up a little bit. Or I wonder what would happen if I just said, hey, that's not going to work for me. And there was no other information. And it's really fun to kind of watch the humans that are like, okay, cool, thanks. Yes. And then the humans that are like, what the hell's wrong with you? And so that in my game of training my behavior differently, it kind of shows me who those people are that want to play with me in that arena. And I think that's interesting.
I love this. And I love thinking of it as a game, because when we do that, we get curious. And so the curiosity opens up. Actually, curiosity helps us with judgment. When I'm curious, I'm not judging.
Fair.
Right? So when I get curious about, ooh, I wonder what that would feel like. Ooh, I wonder what kind of response I would get. Right? Then I'm open. And then that way it allows you to discover more about what you want and who is it that can match that. It's really important. And I'm so grateful that you were willing to have this conversation today. And I hope that you found it helpful.
I do.
And I'm so grateful that you shared, your journey about how it was and what you've learned through your own self-discovery and your own willingness, because you've gone deep. You've gone deep through this journey, through not just the weight, but other things in your life. And like we all have. And I'm so grateful for that, because there's a small percentage that I'm hope will grow more for people who are willing to do that. Right. And for anybody listening, we would love to know your experience with boundaries. We would love to know, gosh, did you relate to this? And did you, write in the comments, what has been your experience? And if you have any issues with boundaries and relationships, please reach out to me. There's a complimentary consultation that we can have to see if this work is right for you. And so, Kim, Thank you.
Thank you so much. Thank you for letting me share and have my own personal therapy session on live stream.
Oh, honey, you got it figured out. You already do.
I'm a work in progress, and I have a lot of great humans around me that help support me in this process. So I'm grateful for you and your team as well.
Oh, I'm grateful for you. All right. Have a great day.